The room became completely silent. No one moved. No one even dared to breathe loudly. The journal rested in Zora's hands. Outside the office door, the unknown man waited patiently. He did not knock. He did not force the door open. The white SUV moved smoothly through the busy streets of Lekki. Inside the car, loud music filled the air. Zora was driving. Mimi sat in the front seat, while Ada and Tenny sat in the back. They laughed, sang along to the music, and talked about the pictures they had just posted online. Within a few minutes, thousands of people had already liked their new photos. Mimi smiled as she looked at her phone. "Look at this," she said happily. "My followers have increased again." Tenny laughed. "I told you. People love luxury." Ada looked out of the window without saying anything. The little girl's words were still in her mind. "I want to be just like all of you when I grow up." She quietly sighed. Behind them, the black SUV stayed at a safe distance. It did not come too close. It did not overtake them. It simply followed. The driver remained hidden behind the dark windows. No one inside the white SUV noticed. A few minutes later, Zora's phone rang through the car's Bluetooth speaker. An unknown number. She frowned. "I don't know this number." "Answer it," Mimi said. Zora pressed the button on the steering wheel. "Hello." For a few seconds, there was only silence. Then a calm voice spoke. "You ladies are enjoying yourselves." The smile disappeared from Zora's face. "Who is this?" No answer. Instead, the caller quietly said, "Some journeys begin with laughter and end with tears." The call suddenly ended. The car became silent. Mimi forced a laugh. "Probably one of your fans trying to scare you." Tenny nodded. "People do strange things online." But Zora did not laugh. Something about the voice felt strange. It sounded calm. Too calm. She quickly blocked the number and continued driving. Unknown to her, another phone inside the black SUV lit up. A man looked at the screen. He smiled. Dave answered. Then he placed the phone back on the seat. The chase continued. That night, none of the girls slept well. The beautiful apartment was quiet, but their minds were not. Every small sound made someone look toward the door. Every vibration from a phone made someone jump. The strange phone calls. The white envelope. The message. The black SUV. None of it made sense. Around midnight, Ada stood by the large window, looking down at the street below. The city was still awake. Cars moved slowly through the road. People laughed outside restaurants. Music floated through the cool night air. Everything looked normal. Then she saw it. The same black SUV. It was still parked across the street. Its lights were off. Its windows were dark. It had not moved. Ada's heartbeat became faster. She quickly called Zora. "Come here." Zora walked over. "What happened?" Ada pointed toward the road. "That car." Zora looked carefully. "I don't see anything strange. It has been following us since afternoon." Zora stared for another few seconds. Then, just as she was about to answer, the SUV quietly started its engine. Without rushing, it slowly drove away and disappeared into the night. Neither of them spoke. For the first time, Zora also felt afraid. Maybe Ada had been right all along. The next morning, the four friends tried to continue with their normal routine. They agreed not to talk about what had happened the previous day. Instead, they focused on work. After all, their followers expected another exciting day. Another smiling picture. Another luxury video. Another reason to believe they were living the perfect life. By 10 o'clock, they were already getting ready for a brand promotion at a beach resort. Hair, makeup, designer clothes. Everything had to look perfect. Mimi smiled as she sprayed perfume. No matter what happens, business must continue. Tenny laughed. Exactly. Fear doesn't pay bills. Ada forced a smile. The four friends stood silently around the table. The wind from the ocean gently pushed the black envelope across the sand. Nobody spoke. For the first time since they became famous, they all felt the same thing. Fear. Not the kind of fear that disappears after a few minutes. The kind that stays inside your heart. Zara slowly picked up the letter again and folded it. "We are leaving," she said quietly. Richard looked confused. "But the photo shoot isn't over." "I'm sorry," Zara replied. "We'll finish another day." Richard could see that something was wrong, but he decided not to ask questions. The girls quickly entered Zara's white SUV and drove away from the beach. Nobody turned on the music. Nobody laughed. The cheerful mood from the morning had completely disappeared. As they drove through Lekki, Ada kept looking through the side mirror. Every black SUV she saw made her heart beat faster. After a long silence, Mimi finally spoke. "I can't take this anymore. What if someone is trying to destroy us?" Tenny folded her arms. "Then we need to find out who it is." "But how?" Mimi asked. "They don't even tell us their name." Zara kept both hands on the steering wheel. "I think someone knows something about our past." The car became quiet again. Nobody wanted to ask the next question. What secret? Each of them had something they wished the world would never know. That evening, they returned to Zara's apartment. The first thing Zara did was close all the curtains. Then she locked every door. She even checked the balcony twice. Mimi noticed. "You've never been this careful before." "I don't trust anyone anymore," Zara answered. Just then, Ada's phone rang. She looked at the screen. It was her mother. She smiled for the first time that day. "Hello, Mama." "My daughter," her mother said, "are you alright?" "Yes." "You don't sound happy." "I'm just tired." Her mother became quiet. "Yes. You don't sound happy." "I'm just tired." Her mother became quiet for a moment. Then she said something unexpected. "A man came to our village this morning asking about you." Ada froze. "What?" "He said he was an old friend." "I've never told anyone from Lagos where we live." "I know." "What did he look like?" "He was wearing a black cap and dark glasses." Ada felt cold. "What did you tell him?" "I said I didn't know where you were." "Good. But before he left, he said something." Ada held the phone tightly. "What did he say?" Her mother's voice became softer. "He said, tell Ada that the past always finds its way home." Ada's heart almost stopped. She slowly ended the call without saying another word. The others immediately noticed her face. "What happened?" Zara asked. Ada told them everything. Nobody moved. Nobody even blinked. Whoever was chasing them had now found Ada's family. The danger was getting closer. That same evening, rain began to fall across Lagos. Heavy drops hit the windows of the apartment. Thunder echoed through the sky. The city lights looked blurry behind the rain. Inside the apartment, the girls sat together in silence. Then someone knocked on the door. 3 slow knocks. Knock. 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 The girls looked at each other. "I didn't order anything," Zara whispered. "Neither did I," Mimi replied. Another knock. This time louder. Nobody moved. Finally, Zara slowly walked toward the door. She looked through the peephole. Nobody was there. She carefully opened the door. The hallway was empty. Only a small brown package rested on the floor. She quickly picked it up and locked the door again. Everyone gathered around. "What now?" Tenny asked. Zara slowly opened the package. Inside was an old photograph. The picture looked worn out. It showed 4 young women standing together and smiling. But these were not the women in the apartment. The girls looked closely. Then Ede gasped. "I know this woman." She pointed to one of the faces. "That's my older cousin, Amaka." The others looked surprised. "You never told us about her." Ede lowered her head. "Because she disappeared 5 years ago." Silence filled the room. Nobody knew what to say. Ede continued. "She left our village for Lagos. She said she had found a better life. At first, she called every week. Then every month. And one day, she stopped calling forever. Her family searched for her. They reported her missing. But nobody ever found her." Mimi looked at the photograph again. "What does this have to do with us?" Ada noticed something written on the back. She slowly turned it over. The handwriting was neat. It read, "Some stories never end. They only wait for the right people to continue them." A cold breeze passed through the room. Just then, Zara's phone rang again. Unknown number. Nobody wanted her to answer. But this time, she did. She placed the call on speaker. "Hello." For a few seconds, there was silence. Then the same calm voice returned. "You found the photograph." The girls looked at one another in shock. "Who are you?" Zara demanded. "What do you want from us?" The voice ignored the question. "Your story started long before you met each other. It started with 4 different girls. Just like the 4 of you. And unless you discover what happened to them, history will repeat itself." The line went dead. Nobody spoke. Rain continued beating against the windows. Far below the apartment building, hidden beneath a large umbrella, a man quietly looked up toward Zara's balcony. He held another old photograph in his hand. This one showed only one person. A young woman smiling brightly. Across the bottom of the picture, one sentence had been written in blue ink. She was the first. The man folded the photograph, slipped it back into his pocket, and disappeared into the rainy streets of Lekki. Above him, the 4 friends still had no idea that the mystery was much bigger than they had imagined. They thought someone was chasing them. They were about to discover. They had walked into a story that had begun years before any of them became the baddies of Lekki. The rain continued throughout the night. The sound of water hitting the windows filled the apartment, but it could not cover the silence inside. The 4 friends sat in the living room. No one was interested in food. No one wanted to watch television. The old photograph lay on the coffee table. It felt as if it was staring back at them. Zara finally broke the silence. "We have 2 choices." The others looked at her. "We can keep running from this, or we can find out the truth." Mimi quickly shook her head. "I don't want to dig into an old mystery. What if we make things worse?" Ada looked at the photograph again. "My cousin disappeared. If this picture has something to do with her, I need answers." Tenny nodded. "I agree with Ada. We've been scared for days. It's time to stop guessing." Zara stood up. "Then we start with the only clue we have. Ada, tell us everything you remember about your cousin." Ada took a deep breath. "I was only 13. Amaka was the pride of our family. She was beautiful, hardworking, and full of big dreams. She always said she wanted to become successful in Lagos. She believed the city could change her life. And did it?" Mimi asked softly. Ada slowly shook her head. "At first, yes. She sent money home. She bought my mother a new sewing machine. She even promised to pay for my university. Ada smiled sadly. Then one day, she stopped calling. We never heard from her again. The room became quiet once more. Tenny looked closely at the photograph. There are 4 girls in this picture. What happened to the other 3? Nobody knew. Just then, Zara remembered something. Wait. She quickly walked toward her bedroom. A few moments later, she returned carrying a small wooden box. What is that? Mimi asked. My grandmother's memory box. The others looked confused. My grandmother lived in Lagos for many years. She used to write everything in journals. I never paid attention to them. But maybe. She opened the box carefully. Inside were old letters. Black and white photographs. Birthday cards. Small notebooks tied together with ribbon. The smell of old paper filled the room. Zara picked up one journal. Dust covered the front. She gently wiped it clean. The year written on the cover was 2018. She slowly opened the first page. Most of it contained ordinary family notes. Shopping list. Birthdays. Small daily events. Then something caught her attention. A page had one sentence written in larger handwriting. 4 girls moved into apartment 9B today. Zara looked up. Our apartment is 9B. Everyone stared at her. She continued reading. My neighbor said the girls are always smiling. They wear beautiful clothes. They leave every evening and return late at night. They remind me of butterflies. They are beautiful. But butterflies are delicate. The journal continued. Today I greeted one of the girls. She introduced herself as Amaka. Ada immediately stood up. Read that again. Zara repeated the sentence. Ada's eyes filled with tears. My cousin lived here. The apartment suddenly felt different. The walls. The hallway. The balcony. Amaka had once walked through the same rooms. She had looked out of the same windows. She had dreamed the same dreams. Zara kept reading. Another page had been marked with a folded corner. She turned to it. The girls no longer laugh as much. Something has changed. Yesterday I saw one of them crying near the staircase. She kept saying, we made a mistake. The girls listened without interrupting. Another page. A black SUV has been parked outside for 3 days. The room became silent. Mimi slowly looked toward the window. The same black SUV. Nobody answered. Zara continued. The girls seem frightened. One of them keeps checking behind her whenever she enters the building. I hope they are safe. Another page. Nothing. The next page. Nothing. Then Zara reached the final written entry. She swallowed hard before reading. Tonight something terrible happened. I heard loud footsteps in the hallway. A door slammed shut. After that, apartment 9B became quiet. The next morning, the 4 girls were gone. No one has seen them since. The journal ended there. There were no more pages. No explanation. No answers. Only questions. The girls looked at one another. Ada slowly whispered. They disappeared, just like my cousin. Before anyone could speak again, the apartment lights suddenly went out. Darkness covered every room. Mimi screamed. What happened? The power is gone, Tenny said. But Zara frowned. The generator should have started by now. It never did. The apartment remained completely dark. Only the flashing lights from distant buildings entered through the windows. Then, someone knocked on the apartment door. Knock. 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 The same slow rhythm. Nobody moved. Another knock. This time louder. Zara picked up her phone and switched on the flashlight. The narrow beam of light fell across the living room. The photograph. The journal. The frightened faces of her friends. Another knock echoed through the apartment. Ada whispered. "Don't open it." The knocking stopped. Complete silence. 30 long seconds passed. Then they heard footsteps. Not outside the apartment. Inside the hallway leading toward the bedrooms. The girls looked at one another in horror. "Did you hear that?" Mimi whispered. Zara slowly turned the flashlight toward the hallway. Nothing. The hallway was empty. Another soft sound. This time from the kitchen. Tenny swallowed nervously. "Someone is inside." The four friends slowly walked together toward the kitchen. Every step felt heavier than the last. Zara pushed the kitchen door open. It was empty. The window above, the sink was wide open. The rain had blown water across the floor. On the kitchen table rested a single white envelope. Nobody had seen it before. With shaking hands, Zara opened it. Inside was a clean sheet of paper. Only one sentence was written. "You're finally asking the right questions." At the bottom of the page was something new. Not a name. Not a signature. Just one address. Warehouse 17, Opapa. The girls stared at it. Ada looked at Zara. "What is Warehouse 17? Zara slowly folded the paper. "I don't know. But I have a feeling. That's where this story truly begins." Outside, hidden in the shadows across the street, someone watched the apartment from inside a parked black SUV. The engine started quietly. The headlights remained off. For a few seconds, the vehicle did not move. Then it slowly drove away into the rainy Lagos night, as if it already knew the girls would soon come looking for the truth. And somewhere inside Warehouse 17, someone was already waiting for them. The next morning, the rain had stopped. The sky over Lagos was bright again, but none of the girls felt hopeful. The white envelope still lay on the dining table. Everyone kept looking at the address written at the bottom. Warehouse 17, Opapa. It was the first real place connected to the mystery. Zara picked up the envelope. "I think we should go." Mimi quickly stood up. "Go there. What if it's a trap?" "It probably is," Zara answered honestly. "But if we keep hiding, we'll never know why someone is chasing us." Ada nodded. "I've spent years wondering what happened to my cousin. If this place can give us even one answer, I'm going." Tenny took a deep breath. "Then none of us goes alone." The four friends looked at one another. Whatever happened next, they would face it together. An hour later, they left the apartment in Zara's white SUV. For the first time in days, nobody cared about taking pictures. Nobody recorded videos. Nobody even looked at social media. Their phones remained silent. As they drove toward Opapa, Lagos became busier. Large trucks filled the roads. Workers carried heavy boxes. Ships could be seen far away near the harbor. Everything looked normal. Yet the girls could not shake the feeling that someone was watching them. Ada looked through the side mirror. "No black SUV today." Mimi smiled weakly. Maybe they finally gave up. Just then, a motorcycle passed them. The rider wore a black helmet. As he rode by, he briefly held up four fingers. Then he disappeared into traffic. The girls looked at one another. "Did you see that?" Tenny asked. Nobody answered. About 20 minutes later, Zara stopped the SUV in front of an old warehouse. The building looked forgotten. Its faded walls were covered with dust. Several windows were broken. The large iron gate hung slightly open. Above the entrance was a rusty sign. Warehouse 17. The place was strangely quiet. No workers. No trucks. No voices. Only the sound of the wind. Mimi swallowed nervously. This place gives me chills. Zara turned off the engine. If anyone feels unsafe, you can stay in the car. Nobody moved. We came together, Ada said. We live together. They slowly walked toward the gate. As soon as they stepped inside, they noticed something unusual. The floor was spotless. There was almost no dust. Someone had been there recently. Tenny whispered. I thought this place was abandoned. So did I, Zara replied. They walked deeper into the warehouse. Sunlight entered through the broken roof, creating long shadows across the floor. Wooden crates were stacked against the walls. Old shipping containers stood quietly in one corner. Everything looked still. Then Ada noticed a small wooden table in the middle of the warehouse. On top of it rested a single brown file. Nothing else. Almost as if someone had placed it there on purpose. Zara carefully walked over. The file had no lock. She slowly opened it. Inside were newspaper cuttings. Old photographs. Letters. And one typed document. The first newspaper headline read, "For young women reported missing in Lagos." Ada quickly searched the page. There, among the small photographs, was her cousin Amaka. She covered her mouth. It's really her. The other three faces matched the women in the old photograph they had found. Mimi continued turning the pages. Another article. Police search ends without answers. Another. Families continue to hope. Then another. Case closed after lack of evidence. Silence filled the warehouse. Someone had collected every article about the missing women. But why? At the bottom of the file was another envelope. Inside it was a handwritten letter. It read, "If you are reading this, it means you refuse to run away. That is good. The truth is hidden in plain sight. The 4 women were not chosen by accident, neither are you. If you truly want answers, look behind the mirror." The girls frowned. What mirror? Mimi asked. They looked around the warehouse. There were no mirrors. Tenny slowly walked toward an old office built inside one corner of the warehouse. The office door was slightly open. I think there's another room. Together they stepped inside. The room was small. A broken desk. An old chair. A dusty bookshelf. And hanging on one wall was a large mirror. Its frame was old and cracked. Zara walked closer. She touched the edge of the frame. It moved. This mirror isn't fixed. She carefully pulled it forward. Behind it was a small hidden compartment. Everyone held their breath. Inside lay a thick black journal. Its cover was worn. Across the front, written in silver ink, were the words, "If I disappear, this is my story." Ada's hands trembled. Do you think? Zara nodded slowly. I think this belonged to Amaka. Before anyone could open the journal, a loud metal door slammed somewhere inside the warehouse. Bang! The sound echoed through the building. Mimi jumped. What was that? Then came footsteps. Slow. Heavy. Getting closer. The girls quickly looked toward the office door. Someone was walking through the warehouse. Step. 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 The footsteps stopped just outside the room. Nobody breathed. Then a calm male voice spoke from the other side of the door. I've been waiting a long time for someone brave enough to find that journal. The girls froze. The voice continued. Don't be afraid. I'm not your enemy. But if you want to know what really happened to Amaka, You must trust me before the people following you find this place. The room fell silent again. The four friends looked at one another. The journal was finally in their hands. But the biggest question remained unanswered. Who was the man standing outside the door? The room became completely silent. No one moved. No one even dared to breathe loudly. The journal rested in Zora's hands. Outside the office door, the unknown man waited patiently. He did not knock. He did not force the door open. He simply stood there. After a few seconds, his calm voice returned. I know you're frightened. If I wanted to hurt you, I would not have waited this long. The four friends looked at one another. Mimi whispered. What do we do? Zara took a deep breath. We've come too far to turn back. She slowly walked toward the office door. Her hand rested on the handle. Then, with one careful movement, she opened it. Standing outside was a man who looked to be in his late 50s. He wore a simple blue shirt, dark trousers, and a brown cap. His face looked tired. His hair had turned gray. He carried no weapon. Only a small leather bag hung from his shoulder. The man looked at the four young women with sad eyes. So, he said quietly. You finally found the journal. Ada stepped forward. Who are you? My name is Daniel. I used to work here many years ago. He slowly looked around the warehouse. This place was once full of people. Now it only holds memories. Tenny folded her arms. How do we know you're telling the truth? Daniel nodded. That's a fair question. He slowly opened his leather bag. The girls became tense. Instead of pulling out anything dangerous, he removed an old employee identity card. The faded card showed his picture. Under it were the words, Warehouse 17, Security Supervisor. He handed the card to Zora. You can keep it. I have nothing to hide. Zora studied the card carefully. It looked old, but real. She handed it back. Daniel looked at the black journal. Did you open it? No, Zora answered. We were about to. Good. Then let Amaka tell her own story. Ada's heart beat faster. My cousin really wrote this. Daniel nodded slowly. She knew something terrible was happening. She wanted someone to know the truth. Ada carefully opened the journal. The first page carried neat handwriting. My name is Amaka. If you're reading this, I may no longer be able to tell this story myself. Ada covered her mouth. Tears filled her eyes. She had not seen her cousin's handwriting in years. Zara gently placed a hand on her shoulder. It's okay. Ada nodded and continued reading aloud. I came to Lagos because I wanted a better life. Like many young people, I believed success was waiting for me. At first, everything looked perfect. I made friends. We laughed together. We believed nothing could stop us. But we trusted the wrong people. The room remained quiet. Daniel closed his eyes. As if he had heard those words many times before. Ada turned the page. One mistake changed everything. We accepted help without asking enough questions. By the time we understood the truth, it was already too late. The next pages had been torn out. Half of the journal was missing. Mimi looked surprised. Someone removed the rest. Daniel slowly nodded. They were looking for that journal before you. Who? Zara asked. Daniel looked toward the warehouse entrance. The people who never wanted this story to be told. Before anyone could ask another question, a loud engine echoed outside. Then another. And another. Daniel immediately became serious. They are here. The girls froze. Who? Tenny asked. Daniel walked quickly to the broken window. He looked outside for only 2 seconds. Then he stepped back. 3 black SUVs. Ada felt her knees become weak. The same ones. Yes. They found us. Mimi's voice trembled. What do we do? Daniel pointed toward the back of the office. There's another exit. Follow me. Without wasting another second, the group hurried through a narrow hallway behind the office. The passage was dark and dusty. Cobwebs covered the corners. It looked as though no one had used it in years. As they hurried forward, Zara suddenly stopped. Wait. She turned back. The journal. In the rush, she had left it on the office desk. Daniel shook his head firmly. We cannot leave it. I'll get it, Zara said. Before anyone could stop her, she ran back toward the office. She reached the desk, picked up the journal, and at that exact moment, she heard footsteps entering the warehouse. Not one pair. Several. She quickly hid behind the office door. Unknown voices echoed through the building. Search every room. They can't be far. Another voice answered. Find the journal first. Zara held her breath. She could hear their footsteps moving closer. Step. 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 One shadow appeared beneath the office door. The handle slowly turned. Zara looked around desperately. There was nowhere to hide. Just then, someone outside shouted. They went toward the back. The footsteps immediately rushed away. Zara did not wait another second. She grabbed the journal and ran as fast as she could. Daniel and the others were waiting near the hidden exit. You took too long, Daniel whispered. I got the journal. Good. They pushed open the old metal door and stepped outside. Instead of another street, they found themselves beside a narrow path leading toward the waterfront. Old fishing boats floated quietly nearby. The sound of the harbor covered their footsteps. For the first time that day, they had escaped. But only for a moment. As Zora looked down at the journal in her hands, she noticed something she had missed before. Tucked inside the back cover was a folded map. She carefully unfolded it. A red circle had been drawn around one location. At the top of the map were 4 handwritten words. This is where it started. Daniel looked at the map and slowly nodded. I was hoping that page was still there. Ada looked at him. Do you know this place? Daniel took a deep breath. Yes. I've spent 7 years trying to forget it. He pointed to the red circle. This address belonged to a woman named Mama Busy. The girls listened carefully. To the world, she was known as a kind businesswoman who helped young women find opportunities in Lagos. Daniel's face became serious. But behind closed doors, she knew more secrets than anyone else. A cold breeze swept across the waterfront. The 4 friends stared at the map. For the first time, they had something real to follow. A place. A name. And perhaps the first person who could finally explain why the baddies of Lekki had become part of a mystery that began years before they ever met. The sun was beginning to set as Zara drove the white SUV toward the address on the map. No one spoke. The only sound inside the car was the quiet hum of the engine. Daniel sat in the front seat, staring out of the window. His face looked different. He seemed worried. Very worried. After almost an hour, the GPS announced. You have arrived. The girls looked through the windshield. An old bungalow stood at the end of a quiet street. Tall trees surrounded the compound. The gate was slightly open. Paint peeled from the walls. Broken flower pots lay scattered near the entrance. The house looked abandoned. Ada frowned. I thought Mama Busy lived here. Daniel's expression changed. She did. What do you mean, did? Daniel slowly got out of the car. Something isn't right. The group carefully walked toward the gate. It made a loud creaking sound as Zara pushed it open. The compound was silent. No birds. No music. No voices. Just the wind. The front door was already open. Tenny whispered. Should we really go inside? Daniel nodded. We've come too far to stop now. The living room was covered in dust. Furniture had been turned upside down. Cupboards were open. Drawers had been emptied onto the floor. It looked as though someone had searched every corner of the house. Mimi looked around nervously. It's like someone was looking for something. Or someone, Daniel replied quietly. Ada called out. Mama busy. No answer. Again she called. Mama busy. Only silence answered. As they searched the rooms, Zara noticed something hanging on the wall. A family photograph. She stepped closer. The picture showed Mama busy standing beside 4 young women. One of them was Amaka. The other 3 were the women from the old photograph. Then Zara noticed something strange. Across every face in the picture, someone had drawn a thick black X with a marker. Every face. Except Mama busy's. A cold feeling ran through her body. Everyone, come and see this. The others gathered around. Before anyone could speak, a loud crash came from upstairs. Bang! Everyone froze. Daniel quickly raised his hand. Nobody moved. Another sound followed. Footsteps. Slow. Careful. Walking across the wooden floor above them. Someone was upstairs. The footsteps stopped. Then, a door slowly creaked open. Mimi grabbed Ada's arm. I don't like this. Daniel whispered. Stay behind me. He slowly climbed the staircase. Each step creaked loudly beneath his feet. The girls followed closely behind. At the end of the hallway was one half-open bedroom door. The footsteps had stopped. Daniel gently pushed the door. The room was empty. The window was wide open. The curtains moved gently in the evening breeze. Whoever had been there had disappeared. But something else caught Ada's attention. On the bed was a small cassette recorder. Its red light was blinking. It's recording, Ada whispered. Zara carefully picked it up. She pressed the play button. For a few seconds, there was only static. Then Mama busy's voice filled the room. If you're listening to this, I no longer have enough time. The girls stared at one another. Her voice continued. They know you found the journal. They know you're coming. I couldn't tell you everything because I no longer know who can be trusted. Daniel's eyes widened. What? The recording continued. One of the people helping you is lying. The room became silent. The girls slowly looked at one another. Then, they all looked at Daniel. Daniel immediately stepped back. What are you doing? Zara's voice shook. The recording said one of the people helping us is lying. Daniel looked hurt. You think it's me? Before anyone could answer, the cassette recorder played Mama busy's final sentence. Don't trust the first answer you receive. The recording suddenly stopped. At that exact moment, the front door downstairs slammed shut with a loud bang. Someone had entered the house. Heavy footsteps echoed through the living room. Then another set of footsteps. And another. The group quietly moved toward the upstairs window. 3 black SUVs had just parked outside the compound. Their doors opened at the same time. Several people stepped out. None of their faces could be seen. Daniel looked around the room. There isn't much time. He pointed toward another door hidden behind a wardrobe. I pray this passage still works. Zara held the recorder tightly. For the first time since the mystery began, the girls realized something terrifying. The enemy had always been one step ahead of them. And now, they had surrounded the house. For a few seconds, nobody moved. The sound of footsteps downstairs grew louder. Someone had entered the house. Then another person. Then another. The old wooden floor creaked beneath their feet. Zara held the cassette recorder tightly. Daniel pointed toward the hidden door behind the wardrobe. Hurry! Tenny pulled the wardrobe aside with Ada's help. Behind it was a narrow wooden door. Daniel pushed it open. A dark passage stretched into the distance. Go, he whispered. One by one, the girls entered the passage. Daniel was about to follow when he suddenly stopped. I'll slow them down. Zara grabbed his arm. No. We are leaving together. Daniel looked into her eyes. If we all run at once, they will catch us. I know this house. I'll meet you outside. Before Zara could argue, Daniel quietly closed the hidden door from the other side. The girls heard a heavy object being pushed in front of it. Daniel had blocked the entrance. The passage was dark. Only the flashlight on Zara's phone lit the narrow tunnel. Mimi's voice trembled. Do you think he'll be okay? Nobody answered. They kept moving. After several minutes, the tunnel ended behind an old church a few streets away. The girls stepped outside and looked around. There was no sign of Daniel. 10 minutes passed. Then 20. Still nothing. Tenny looked worried. We have to go back. Before anyone could respond, Zara's phone rang. Unknown number. She hesitated. Then answered. A calm male voice spoke. You escaped. Zara immediately recognized the voice. It was the same mysterious caller who had been contacting them from the beginning. Who are you? She demanded. The man ignored the question. You trust Daniel. That is your biggest mistake. The call ended. The four friends stood in silence. Mimi slowly looked at Zara. The recording. The phone call. What if Daniel really is lying? Ada shook her head. No. He helped us. He saved us. But why did Mama Busy warn us? Tenny asked. Nobody had an answer. Just then, Daniel appeared from the end of the street. He was breathing heavily. His shirt was dusty. A small cut could be seen on his forehead. I found you, he said. Everyone sighed with relief. Daniel smiled weakly. We have to leave now. Zara stared at him. You took too long. I had to make sure nobody followed me. The girls quietly entered the SUV. Nobody noticed that the atmosphere had changed. No one laughed. No one spoke. They all kept stealing quick glances at Daniel. The seed of doubt had been planted. As they drove away, Daniel noticed the silence. What happened? No one answered. He looked at Zara. Is something wrong? Zara finally spoke. We received another phone call. Daniel nodded slowly. And? They said we shouldn't trust you. Daniel gave a tired smile. I was expecting that. The girls looked surprised. What do you mean? Ada asked. Daniel leaned back in his seat. When someone wants to break a team, the first thing they attack is trust. His answer sounded reasonable. But something still didn't feel right. About 30 minutes later, Zara stopped at a small hotel where they planned to spend the night. For safety, they rented 2 rooms. One for the girls. One for Daniel. Everyone agreed not to leave their rooms until morning. At midnight, Ada woke up. She wasn't sure why. The room was quiet. Mimi and Tenny were asleep. Zara was also sleeping peacefully. Then Ada heard it. A door closing softly outside. She quietly walked to the window. She looked into the hotel parking lot. Her heart nearly stopped. Daniel was getting into a black SUV. He looked around carefully. Then the vehicle quietly drove away into the darkness. Ada couldn't believe her eyes. She quickly grabbed her phone and secretly took a picture through the window. By the time the SUV disappeared, her hands were shaking. The next morning, Daniel returned to the hotel carrying breakfast. He smiled as though nothing had happened. "Good morning. I brought food." No one smiled back. Ada slowly placed her phone on the table. She opened the photo she had taken during the night. Then she turned the screen toward everyone. The picture clearly showed Daniel standing beside the black SUV. The room became completely silent. Daniel looked at the photograph, then slowly looked up at the girls. His smile disappeared. "I can explain." Zara folded her arms. "Then explain." Daniel took a deep breath. "The people in that SUV are not who you think they are." Before he could say another word, the television inside the hotel room suddenly switched on by itself. The news presenter appeared on the screen. Breaking news flashed across the bottom. The presenter spoke calmly. "Police are searching for a man connected to the disappearance of 4 young women 7 years ago." A photograph appeared on the screen. The girls turned toward the television. Their eyes widened. The man in the photograph was Daniel. The room fell into complete silence. Daniel stared at the television in shock. Then he quietly whispered, "They finally made their move." The girls stepped backward. For the first time since this journey began, they didn't know whether the man who had guided them this far was their greatest protector, or the person they should have feared all along. The hotel room was completely silent. Nobody took their eyes off the television. Daniel's photograph filled the screen. Below it, the words, "Wanted for questioning," appeared in bold letters. The news presenter continued speaking. "Police are asking members of the public to report any information about Daniel Adebayo, who is believed to have information connected to the disappearance of 4 young women several years ago." Mimi slowly stepped away from Daniel. Tenny did the same. Ada looked confused. Zara's heart was racing. Daniel quietly picked up the television remote and switched the TV off. The room became silent again. "No one is leaving this room until you explain everything," Zara said firmly. Daniel looked at each of them. "I've been waiting years for this moment. You deserve the truth." He slowly sat down. "Yes. The police questioned me. Yes. My picture appeared in newspapers. And yes, I disappeared." Ada frowned. "Why would you disappear if you were innocent?" Daniel sighed. "Because the real people behind everything were still free. I knew that if I stayed in public, I would never live long enough to expose them." The girls remained silent. Daniel reached into his bag. Slowly, he removed a small voice recorder. "I've carried this for 7 years. He pressed the play button. A man's voice filled the room. It was not Daniel. "I don't care who knows the truth," the unknown man said. "As long as Daniel takes the blame, we're safe." Another voice laughed. "No one will ever believe him." The recording ended. Daniel looked at the girls. "I recorded that conversation the night the 4 women disappeared." Zara stared at him. "Why didn't you give it to the police?" "I tried. But before I could, the recording disappeared." The girls looked confused. Daniel held up the recorder. "I found a backup copy only 3 months ago." The room fell silent. Just then, someone knocked on the hotel room door. Knock. 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 Everyone froze. Daniel immediately stood. "Don't answer." Another knock came. This time louder. Room service, a voice called from outside. Zara frowned. We didn't order anything. Daniel quietly moved toward the peephole. He looked outside for only 1 second. His face changed immediately. Stay back. What is it? Ada whispered. That's not hotel staff. Before anyone could react, the hotel room telephone rang. Zara answered carefully. The receptionist sounded frightened. Please leave through the emergency stairs immediately. What? Someone pretending to be hotel staff has entered the building asking for your room. The line suddenly went dead. Daniel immediately grabbed his bag. We are leaving. The girls hurried toward the emergency exit. As they reached the hallway, the elevator doors opened. 3 men wearing hotel uniforms stepped out. They smiled politely. But Daniel whispered, "Run." Without asking questions, everyone rushed toward the stairwell. The men immediately began chasing them. Their footsteps echoed through the building. Down 1 floor. Then another. Then another. Guests looked around in confusion as the group hurried past. Finally, they reached the parking area. Zara quickly unlocked the white SUV. Everyone jumped inside. The engine started. The SUV sped out of the hotel just as another black SUV entered through the main gate. They found us again, Mimi whispered. Daniel looked through the rear window. They are following. The chase continued through the busy streets of Lagos. Cars honked loudly. Commercial buses blocked the road. Motorcycles squeezed between vehicles. Zara held the steering wheel tightly. I can't lose them. Daniel looked ahead. Take the next right. She obeyed. Then another turn. Then another. For almost 15 minutes, the black SUV stayed behind them. Finally, Daniel pointed toward a crowded open market. Drive through there. What? Trust me. The market road was narrow. Traders pushed wheelbarrows. Customers crossed from every direction. The black SUV could not move as quickly. Within seconds, Zara's vehicle disappeared into another street. The followers were gone. For now. The girls packed behind a small warehouse to catch their breath. Everyone was breathing heavily. Nobody spoke. Then Daniel slowly removed another item from his bag. This time, it was an old photograph. The girls leaned closer. The picture showed Daniel standing beside 4 smiling young women. Amaka and her 3 friends. On the back of the photograph was a handwritten message. It read, "If anything happens to us, trust Daniel." Ada recognized the handwriting immediately. It's Amaka's. Daniel nodded quietly. I promised your cousin I would protect the truth. He looked at the girls with tired eyes. I failed to protect them. But I refused to fail you. For the first time since seeing Daniel's face on the news, the girls began to question everything they thought they knew. Maybe the man everyone believed was guilty had been protecting the truth all along. But if Daniel wasn't the villain, then who had been controlling the black SUVs from the shadows all these years? As the sun began to set over Lagos, a phone vibrated inside one of the black SUVs parked several streets away. A hidden caller spoke only 1 sentence. They've escaped again, activate phase 2. The driver nodded silently. Then the call ended. The real mastermind had finally made a move. And the most dangerous part of the story was only just beginning. Night had fallen over Lagos. The white SUV was hidden behind an old warehouse while the 5 of them tried to think. No one spoke for several minutes. The only sound was the distant traffic and the hum of the city. Zara looked at Daniel. So if you are not the one behind this, who is? Daniel took a deep breath. There was one person who always stayed in the background. He never liked attention. He never appeared in photographs. He allowed other people to do the talking. Ada leaned forward. Do you know his name? Daniel nodded slowly. Only one. Victor. Who is Victor? Mimi asked. Daniel looked down. I never knew his full name. I only knew that everyone who worked with him was afraid of him. He was very good at hiding. He never threatened people himself. He always made someone else do it. Tenny frowned. So how do we find a man whose full name we don't even know? Daniel reached into his bag again. I've been saving one clue. He placed a small silver key on the dashboard. The number 19 was engraved on it. What does it open? Zara asked. A storage locker. Where? Lagos Island. And what's inside? Daniel looked at the key for a long moment. I've never opened it. The girls looked surprised. You had the key all this time? Ada asked. Yes. But Amaka told me something. He smiled sadly. She said, don't open it until you know who to trust. Zara started the engine. Then let's find out what's inside. An hour later, they arrived at an old storage facility near Lagos Island. Most of the lockers were closed. A security officer sat near the entrance reading a newspaper. Daniel walked over. I'd like to access locker 19. The officer looked at the silver key. Without asking any questions, he nodded. I've been told that if anyone brings this key, they should be allowed in. The girls exchanged surprised looks. Someone had planned this years ago. The officer led them down a long hallway. Finally, they stopped in front of a grey metal door marked 19. Daniel inserted the key. The lock clicked. He slowly pulled the door open. Inside was a single wooden chest. Nothing else. The chest was covered in dust. It had clearly not been touched for many years. Ada carefully lifted the lid. Inside were several items wrapped in cloth. A camera. A notebook. An old mobile phone. And a sealed envelope. Across the front, written in Amaka's handwriting, were the words, "Open only when you are ready for the truth." Zara carefully opened the envelope. Inside was a letter and a small memory card. Daniel smiled. That's what we've been looking for. Mr. Adeyemi had once told him that Amaka always kept copies of important evidence. Maybe this was one of them. Ada unfolded the letter and began reading aloud. If you have found this locker, then you have followed every clue I left behind. I am proud of you. The truth is not hidden in one person. It is hidden in choices. Some people choose honesty. Others choose fear. Do not become the kind of people who hide behind lies. If you want to know who frightened us all those years ago, watch the video on this memory card. Everyone looked at the tiny memory card. Tenny whispered, "We need a laptop." The security officer overheard them. "There is a computer in the office. You may use it." The group quickly followed him. Daniel inserted the memory card into the computer. For a few seconds, the screen remained black. Then, a video began to play. The image was shaky. It looked as if someone had recorded it secretly. Amaka appeared on the screen. She looked tired. But she smiled. "If you're watching this, it means my plan worked." The girl smiled through tears. Amaka continued. "I know many people will think this story is about one powerful enemy." She gently shook her head. "It isn't. The greatest enemy is the fear that tells us we must pretend to be someone we are not." She paused. "I met people who wanted control. I met people who loved money. I met people who cared only about appearances. But I also met good people. Daniel. Mama Busy. Mr. Adeyemi. They risk everything to protect the truth. Daniel lowered his head quietly. Amaka smiled again. If they are standing beside you, trust them. Then her expression became serious. And if you are waiting to see one final villain, you will be disappointed. The person who nearly destroyed my life was not one man. It was every wrong choice I refused to question. The room became silent. The video continued. I made mistakes. I trusted too quickly. I cared too much about what people thought. But every new day gives us another chance to choose wisely. She looked directly into the camera. If my story changes your future, then my past was not wasted. The video ended. Nobody spoke. The room was completely quiet. After a long moment, Zara smiled. So this was never about revenge. Daniel nodded. It was about breaking a cycle. Ada carefully closed the laptop. My cousin wanted to save people, not scare them. Mimi wiped away a tear. And she did. Outside the storage building, dawn was beginning to break over Lagos. The first rays of sunlight filled the sky. The black SUVs were gone. The anonymous phone calls had stopped. The chase was finally over. For the first time since this journey began, the four friends felt something they had not felt in a very long time. Peace. They walked out of the building together. Not as women trying to look perfect, but as women who had found something far more valuable. The truth. And that truth would change the rest of their lives forever.